sale for half off. So lucky for you, you can get a ticket for about 18 bucks to go down to Portland. So it's a pretty good deal right here. Now, other than King Street Station, another iconic building here in this part of the city is the Smith Tower. It's this tan building with a pyramid on top. It's got 6 triangle windows in a glass. And our fleet, got the Good Time 3, Spirit of Seattle, and the Good Time 2. Good Time 3 will take you on launch cruises. That's another cruise ARGOSY offers if you want to go see Lake Union and go through the Ballard Locks. Spirit of Seattle is our other partner, so we're filming. Good Time 2 is a nice little private charter boat that we take around every now and then. Past Pier 55, though, believe it or not, we have Pier 56. That's home to Elliot's Oyster House. If you're looking for a fancy place to go eat some, go swimming in the deep end over here on this side of the city. If you want to go swimming, check out Lake Union or Lake Washington on the eastern side of Seattle has grown. Now, if you really like the look of the Smith Tower, which is a very popular right now, you can see those colorful t-shirts up top, you can get there and use. Lots of people enjoy the Space Needle. Whole hotel, several other famous rockers have stayed at the Edgewater, like the Beach Boys, Led Zeppelin, just to name a couple for you. Now, just past the Edgewater, one of the luckier Seattleites who made their fortune going to the gold rush was John Nordstrom. Now, he started a shoe store with that money, and that eventually grew into the Nordstrom's clothing chain we know of today. So, what is history out of Pier 58? Past Pier 58 is the Seattle Aquarium at Pier 59. This is one of the essential places to go visit during attracted asthma from wildfire smoke that we got here in the area. The staff at that aquarium, however, taught that otter to use an inhaler. That's right. She's a self-medicating sea otter. Niche the otter. Go say hi to her at the Seattle Aquarium at Pier 59. Make sure to get those photos if they poke their heads up. You'll notice the land over here is quite flat if you look off into the distance. And if you've been walking around downtown Seattle, you'll notice that it's very hilly. Try to go up from the waterfront to Pike Place Market, and you'll see what I mean. So this flat land is not natural. In fact, in the shipping area over here, it's built on top of a man-made island. It's called Harbor Island, and this is the largest man-made island in the entire United States. At the time of its completion in the early 20th century, it was the largest man-made island in the entire world, but it has since lost that title. The area around here used to be an estuary for the Duwamish River, which is the largest river here in the Puget Sound region. It's very marshy, soft land. You couldn't build anything over here. So dirt and rocks were used to fill in this area so we can build what we have here. Now, if you're wondering where we take the Salish Explorer to go fuel up, we cannot put it on the back of a Ford F-150 and take it to the Chevron. We have to go to the fueling station, which you can see right off the starboard side. It's got some yellow hosing coiled up on the end of it, an American flag waving in the middle. That is where we would take the Salish Explorer to go fuel. Now, also in this area, you would often see a green barge, and this is where trains bring cargo to load onto barges to ship up to Alaska. And that's because there isn't a railroad route that goes from Seattle all the way to Alaska. So lots of that cargo is shipped right out of this location in Seattle to head up alongside the United States to usually Whittier, which is a port in Alaska. From there, it's loaded on trains and taken around to the rest of the state. And moving past that, we have some red Crowley tugboats here. Now, these boats, you saw some tugboats in action earlier. They're used to do pretty much anything that needs to be done here in the Port of Seattle. They're kind of like the workhorses of the port. They pull barges, they maneuver ships into dry docks, they can clear wreckage. They can do pretty much anything you could ask them to do. Larger items we have here in the industrial part of the port are these giant white gantry cranes. Now, I point them out, but you can't really miss them off the starboard side. Hundreds of feet tall, and believe it or not, despite their size, they are shipped fully assembled from China. When I saw them come into port, there were 4 of these on top of one cargo ship, fully assembled like you see them right now. Also impressive because of their size, they're just operated by one person. It's just one crane operator that would get close to the industrial area of the Port of Seattle. So I'm going to pick up the tour again here. Right off the starboard side, got some sights to see. These giant U are dry docks over here. As you'll be able to tell, they are used to lift very large ships up and out of the water. Now, the way these things work is quite cool. The first thing they do is they lay concrete blocks on the bottom of the dry docks. Then they sink it beneath the surface of the water. They open valves on the dry docks, flood them with water, cause them to go beneath the surface of the waves. Once that's done and over with, tugboats guide large vessels out and over the dry dock. Water is pumped back out of the dry dock, causing it to float up above the surface of the water, bringing the ship with it. Now today we have a few Navy boats up in the air, getting repairs, maintenance, upgrades, whatever is easier to do above water than it is to do below water. Now, most interesting ship here today, I think, is that littoral combat ship. It's the middle of the three Navy ships you can see off the starboard side. Now, if you look down beneath the center circles with jet engines in them, that's right, 4 circular holes. It's a ship powered by jet engines. It can travel at top speeds of around 55 miles per hour in water as shallow as 14 feet. So it's a state-of-the-art Navy ship up there on display for you today. And you can see the keel blocks, or the concrete blocks that are used to prop up the ship under these sections of the littoral combat ship there. On either side of the LCS are Ticonderoga class missile cruisers. And you can see lots of radar equipment and missile silos as well. Now, past these Navy ships, up on one of the buoys, earlier today was a sea lion. So if you keep your eyes peeled, you can see its head poking up above the water. Right off the starboard side, there's an orange circular floating device that's used to chain these fences together. If you look just past that to the left of it, you can see the sea lion now just hanging out on one of those mating seasons. So they're up here eating salmon, all types of food to gain muscle, gain fat, and return to become a beach with the claw of, or the hand of that crane reeling down, if you will. Now, there aren't many crane operators working today because since it's Labor Day, it's holiday weekend, they would be getting triple pay today. So people who pay those crane operators don't want to have all of them working, getting triple the amount of money they would normally get. However, when they do work here, they'll work in about 2 to 6 hour shifts. Now, that might seem kind of short, but they do have to go back to the ground every now and then to recover from steering. You do not want to crane the mist in the last waves that are off the ground. Now, you might think that, you could handle things more than skill to be a crane operator. Just to land the interview for the job, you need to be selected out of a workplace lottery. That's just for the interview, and then the interview is conducted only 300 made the cut, so it's a very coveted and competitive position to land here in the Port of Seattle. Now, you can actually see the crane operator up in the second frame from the right. If you look up in that glass cage there, they're lifting the claw right now. You can see it slowly being risen off the ground there. Now, looking past these cranes, these are the container ships that they load the containers on. Now, the typical size container ship we get here in the Port of Seattle can carry about 10,000 TEUs. That stands for 20-foot equivalent unit. Now, the containers you see are 40-foot units, so that's 2 TEUs. So, container ship, average size, you're looking at about 5,000 containers. Now, really ships that can carry. If you look off the starboard side as we turn around, it's about the 1 o'clock position right now. you'll notice a clock tower. It's on a big brick building with some green eyes staring back at you. That is the Starbucks headquarters right there. They named their company after the cargo in the area. They wanted to go with Cargo House Brew. I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound very refreshing to me. And their marketing friends actually told them that strong brand names start with an ST. So they went to a map of Washington to find some inspiration for a new brand name. They stumbled across the town of Starbo in the Cascades. That reminded them of Starbuck, who was the first mate on the ship Pequod in the novel Moby Dick. So they went with the first mate on the ship. Was traveling across the Pacific Ocean, destined to the port of Tacoma, which is a bit south of us here in Seattle. They encountered very rough weather, very rough waves, high winds, and one of these containers was blown off the side of a container ship. When it sunk to the ocean floor, and eventually hit that ocean floor, it cracked open and released tens of thousands of bath toys, namely rubber duckies. Now those rubber duckies floated to the top of the surface of the ocean, and you might have thought that they wouldn't have lasted very long. Well, to explore these rubber duckies, and they created a hotline. So if you found a rubber ducky on a beach, you could type in the serial code, and they could discover whether it came from that incident. And those researchers used these rubber duckies to track ocean currents. Now, you can actually read about this event in the book called The Story of Moby Duck. It's a real book. You can look it up and read about it. I try to keep everything factually accurate on the tour today. I wouldn't mind it. So as we move out of the east waterway of the Duwamish River, if you keep looking off the starboard side, we are going to pass the Coast Guard area of the port of Seattle. Right now, you can see the top of one of the Coast Guard icebreakers. It's one of these red and white ships. These icebreakers will go either far north or far south to break ice for container ships that need help, but more often researchers going down to the South Pole to the Aquarium Research Station down there. Now today, the icebreaker closest to us is the Polar Stars, the number 10 Polar Star. It's still in service, but the one in front of it, the Polar Sea, is decommissioned. It's been mothballed, and they're using it for spare parts to keep the Polar Star running for just a little bit longer. Now, just past these icebreakers, you'll see two other Coast Guard ships here in the port of Seattle. These are Hamilton-class Coast Guard cutters. These are the workhorses of the Coast Guard. They have those cannons right out in the front, pointed directly at us. And these Coast Guard ships will carry out missions from counterterrorism, border patrol, drug busts, anything like that. However, they're not going to be serving in the U.S. Coast Guard much longer. They have been sold to the South Korean Coast Guard, so they're headed across the ocean sometime soon. Now, moving past these cutters, we are entering the area of the city with our stadium. So the first stadium you can see on the right is T-Mobile Park. It's this blacktop stadium with that pink logo in the bottom right corner. That's home to a professional baseball team here in Seattle, and they have an interesting record. They have never lost a World Series game, and that's because they have never been to the World Series. So it's been a rough time being a Mariners fan, but they still have a chance to make it to the playoffs. They can still do it. Maybe I'll be alive when they win that World Series. I'm not putting any money on it though. But regardless of how the Seattle Mariners are doing, you can always go to T-Mobile Park. It's a great place to watch the ball, get a drink, get a snack. Always a good time in Seattle. They have a convertible roof here at T-Mobile Park as well, so they can prevent games from getting rained out. The workers at T-Mobile Park can extend or contract that ceiling at will, so it is pretty neat. The other stadium we have here is and both of those teams have their own respective championship titles. They're very successful franchises, and they might owe that in part to the stadium. That's because Lumen Field, when it was constructed, was designed to redirect sound from the audience back at the ground. That makes it very loud for the visiting teams to hear when the entire stadium is being extremely loud. And that came into play in 2011. Marshawn Lynch, the famous Seahawk running back, ran a 67-yard touchdown against the Saints, breaking that when the sound people over to Alpine Beach and make it more accessible than you might have otherwise on that. Now they fine you for every plane we have to redirect to the
Hello, thank you.